Hi everyone. So today we're going to be talking about creating an effective schedule. Okay, so you should be having your workbook in front of you. There's going to be some fill in the blanks, and we're going to talk about a lot of details that are specific to being a successful realtor. If there's one thing I can tell you as far as being a coach for as long as I've been and being a top producer for as long as I had been, is the fact that following your schedule and creating a schedule is one of the most vital parts to being a successful realtor. I hear it all the time. Realtors tell me they want to come into real estate because they can manage their schedule, they have flexibility, all this other stuff. There's pros and cons to that. The pros are you don't have to ask anybody to take time off, but the cons are the more often you're doing that, the more you're cheating yourself. You have to create a schedule that is going to be very important to your success, and it's going to allow you the opportunity to have certain items that's going to allow you this success. A lot of the top realtors, what they'll do is they create a schedule that is going to be activity based. That's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, I'm not talking about creating this time block schedule from this time to this time to this time to this time. I'm talking about creating an activity based schedule. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, at the beginning of the year, you're going to determine how many days you're going to be working. Okay, very simple. Let's look at the math. If you were to take an average business day over the course of an entire month, you're probably looking at about 5 days a week, 4 weeks in a month, for a total of 20 days. Multiply that times 12, now you're looking at about 240 days. If you actually look up Google or you try to add up the numbers, the number ends up being between 263, 265 days, as far as Monday through Friday days. However, you have holidays, you have all of these other factors that are taken in consideration. So let's just use the simple math of 20 days a month times 12 gives us 240. And what we're going to do is we're going to subtract 10%. Why are we going to subtract 10%? Because I would be expecting you to be taking some time off. I'd be expecting you to go on some vacations. I'd be expecting you to be going to some events. And for that matter, heck, most of us get sick, a couple days out of the year. So those are reasons why you're going to want to go ahead and subtract that 10%. Okay. Now, moving on, your schedule should always be based on your goals. Okay. Now, that you've set for the year, not anything else. Okay. So what I don't want you to do is going back to elementary, middle, or high school and you look at your neighbors and you say, hey, what'd you get on this question? What'd you get on, your response? What does your schedule look like? I want you to build a schedule that is specific to with what it is that you're wanting to accomplish. Now, the reason I say that is because you'll have an agent that's doing, as an example, 100 plus deals a year, and you're sitting there wanting to do everything that agent has in their schedule. Well, what you're not seeing is the fact that that agent may be on the position where they're on the other side of with what the habits that they needed to create. What do I mean by that? The fact that I've interviewed a lot of agents, I'll see agents where they're doing 100 plus deals a year and now they're making 20 contacts a day. So I don't want you going into it thinking that if I only do 20 contacts a day, I'll do 100 deals. Well, what that person is not sharing with you is the fact that 6 years previous to that, they were making 40, 50, 60 contacts a day every single day for 4, 5, 6 years. And then finally they got to where they wanted to get to, and now they can kind of ease up. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to build your schedule based on with what it is that your goals are. Really important. Now be careful not to create schedule based upon someone else's. Okay. Production based on every schedule is designed individually. It's basically with what we just talked about. But it's really important because the other side of that, which I've had the benefit of seeing and being in a position where I've coached other people, where they'll do 100 deals a year and they're working a 30, 35 hour work week. You can't get away with that, especially if you're a new or newer agent. So always base it on your goals. What we want to do is, of course, having a precise schedule can solve almost every production problem you have. Now, provided, of course, that you follow it. I've seen so many variations to schedules. I'll see agents when I get someone that's a newer coaching client, they say, Coach, look at this is the schedule I follow. And they'll go from 5 o'clock in the morning all the way till 10 o'clock at night. They have everything dialed in, color coded, all of these different things, but they don't follow it. Okay. There's the idea, there's the concept, there's the, this is what I'd like to do, but unfortunately they don't do it. Okay. So I want it to be more precise with what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And we're going to talk about that here in just a second. Now, what I want you to do is treat your business as if though it were a real job, okay? Which makes your schedule a lot easier to follow. Very simple statement. But the problem though is when realtors come into the business, they'll just kind of show up whenever they want. They take these extended breaks. They go ahead and take off early. But think about it. If you were to be working at, let's say for example, I don't know, Target, okay, and you're scheduled to work Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. and you just strolled in at 8:45 and you decided to take a 2-hour lunch break, and instead of clocking out at 5 o'clock, you said, you know what, I got some errands to run, I'm going to leave at 3:45, and you do that every other day, would you hire yourself? Would you fire yourself? Would you give yourself a raise? That's the problem with realtors. They don't take it as serious as that. So think about it. What does your schedule look like the last week? What did your schedule look like yesterday? Okay. So look at those things, because if you're being the type of realtor that does the example that I just gave you, and you're cutting corners, maybe it's not much, 45 minutes here, 10 minutes there, an hour there. You add it up over the course of 220 days, you may be falling short anywhere from, heck, 400, 500, 600 hours. And if you do the math, 400 hours, I mean, you're looking at almost taking, I don't know, maybe 2 to 3 weeks off. That doesn't really make sense. Okay, so think about that. Now, if you limit the amount of time you work, you force yourself to be effective. Okay? And of course, in the time that you do work. So what I also don't want you to do is be in a position where you're away from your family just to be away from your family. I don't want you putting in 60, 70, 80-hour work weeks. That's not what I'm telling you to do. If actually the complete contrary to that. Have a schedule that is so precise, okay, maybe a little bit shorter, so that you do everything you need to. A lot of times realtors are finding themselves working on Saturdays and Sundays because they didn't do what they were supposed to be doing on Monday through Friday. Are you that agent? I hope you're not. So you have to look at those things that is going to allow you to be an effective realtor. If you make a precise schedule, you follow that precise schedule from Monday through Friday, and you do that from 8 o'clock till 5 p.m., and you do that religiously, I can guarantee you that over an extended period of time, you're gonna get results. But if you're the type of agent that doesn't really have a schedule, follows it, or does what they're supposed to be doing in the time frame that they're supposed to be doing, again, you're gonna be a mediocre agent. So it's up to you as to with what direction you wanna go. Now, keep track of your time hour by hour. Do this for 2 weeks to identify the strengths and, for that matter, the weaknesses of your time management system. Now, send a copy to your coach. Now, why am I asking you to do this? Because a lot of times, if you don't find yourself logging in, now you don't have to do this all the time. This is what is called a time and motion study. If every hour on the hour you look at, okay, I did this, I did that, and at the end of the week, you go, man, I didn't realize that I spent 13 hours on social media. I spent 8 hours on goofing around on, just reading random stuff, just, being on the internet or shopping or, spending time on emails, calling people that you're not even supposed to be calling, maybe running errands, doing all of these different things. You have to look at the things that are going to cause you to be successful. So look at the strengths and look at the weaknesses. Always look at how can I turn a weakness into a strength. So those are things that I definitely want you to pay attention to. The other thing is your daily schedule should be kept in a place where it will be seen by many people. Accountability is critical. Post it in as many places as you can. Okay? So I've done this numerous times, being in the business since 1999, I would post my schedule all over the place. In front of my desk, at the office, I'd post it even at home. so many different places that I'd have it posted for the purpose of somebody asking me, hey, Robert, aren't you supposed to be doing this right now? I want to be told that. I want to be asked that. I want other people to hold me accountable, because the more I'm being held accountable, the more I'm likely to be doing my job. So post it as many places as you possibly can. Now, to create a stronger focus on personal motivation and time management, where are the places you'd like to go, the things you'd like to do, and the things that you would like to have? Why is this important? A lot of times, as I'm coaching a realtor, I'm seeing realtors struggle. They show up, they go through the motions, and they just, go, half-heartedly at their day. But if you know that the purpose of you showing up today is to get this vacation, this car, this house, this boat, this whatever, you would take a different approach. Ideally, I'd want you to be in a position to, what I call is dangling the carrot. Okay, for me, I've always followed that concept. What's the dangling of the carrots? Well, if I do these activities Monday through Friday, I reward myself with the following. When I close X number of deals, I'm going to go get so on and so forth. Look at the things that are going to excite you, motivate you. And I would even encourage you to maybe even have a picture right in front of you, and so that you can see exactly the purpose of you being on the phone, you following your schedule, doing your prospecting, doing your lead follow-up, doing all of those things that's going to cause you to be successful. So whether that's a car, a house, a boat, a trip, or whatever that may be, maybe it might even be just putting some money in savings. Look at things that are going to excite you. Okay? And those are the reasons why you're following your schedule. Now, not having strong personal goals and objectives will always cause a time management problem. Again, furthering what I just said. The more you find yourself in a position where you have no clue with what it is that you want, you're just going to go through the motions. You're going to end up showing up late. You're going to end up taking the extra lunch. You're going to go run the errands that you should not have run during your time of work. And for that matter, you're going to end up leaving early. Because, after all, what's the point of being here when I can be going shopping, running errands? I could be doing all this other stuff. The more precise it is, the more focused you are, the more motivated, ideally, you're going to be following your schedule, because it's going to allow you the opportunity to reap the benefits of that. And that's what I want you to pay attention to. Now, your schedule's a working document. Okay? Be flexible. Imagine that someone is sitting with you personally and watching you work. If I'm sitting in your office, if I'm sitting next to you, or I come in and check in on you, are you doing with what it is you're supposed to be doing? Okay. And if the answer is no, why? But the other part of that is you want to make sure that it's flexible. And what I mean by it being flexible, that's where it's activity based. So rather than being time specific, I'm not saying that that's wrong. I just put the emphasis more on the activity. We know we're supposed to be working on our skills. We know we're supposed to be doing our prospecting. We know we're supposed to be doing our lead follow-up. We get paid to negotiate contracts. And of course, the whole purpose of our day is to go on appointments. Or is it going on social media, updating my Instagram, going on TikTok, shopping for a new pair of shoes, paying the bills? No, that shouldn't be in your schedule. You shouldn't be doing any of that stuff. That's unfair for you, and that's more unfair for your loved ones. Because the 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes time and motion studies that I've done in the past, 10, 12 hours a week being on social media, don't you think that's a little unfair? Don't you think that's a little selfish, especially if your loved ones are at home waiting for you to come home, but you didn't because you spent 3 hours on social media today? Really important. Now look carefully for what doesn't work in your schedule. Talk to your coach about it and change it. Okay. So the flexibility part, what that basically means is that maybe in your schedule you start your day off with role playing. You have it scheduled for 5 days a week, 5 different role plays. But let's say, for example, your Tuesday role play partner doesn't show up. What are you going to do? Just take time off? No, how about writing the scripts, chanting the scripts, recording the scripts, okay? Memorizing the scripts, Doing all of these things that are going to allow you the opportunity to continue to grow in your skills versus just sitting there. Okay? So look at the expansion of that as well. Are you making 20 contacts? Should you be making 30? Should you be making 40? Heck, you haven't gotten any business in the last 4 or 5 months. Should you really be taking off at 2 o'clock? Or should you put in the extra time and making the 50, 60, even 70 contacts a day? Something to think about. Now, following your schedule is simply developing a habit like any habit you have. The more often you do it, the easier it becomes. Now remember, it takes time to create a habit. The question is asked, how many days does it create a habit? I hear you. You're probably saying 7, 10, 14, 21, whatever it is. The answer is, it doesn't matter. To create a habit, it needs to put you in a position, whether that be 10 days, 14 days, 21 days, 30 days, or 60 days, until you know you have to do it every single day. I mean, think about it. How often do you brush your teeth? I'm hoping it's every day and twice a day and probably even more than that. But that's a habit. That's a version of a habit. How often do you put your shoes on? Do you do it every day or just on the occasion? That's a habit. You have to look at these activities as such. Following your schedule is exactly the same thing. That's feeding your business, which of course feeding your business is feeding your family. Now it's up to you whether you're going to be wining and dining on lobster and steak, or you're going to be dining on a cup of noodles. Okay. So look at the most important parts of your schedule, and what's working, continue doing it. And for that matter, maybe even growing it. What isn't working, make the necessary changes. Okay? Because it does take time to create that habit. Now, the clearer you are as to what you want to accomplish, going back to our goals, the more sense your schedule will make to you, and of course, the easier it will be to follow it. Finding all of these little nuances, whether that be on a weekly, maybe a monthly, you look at all of the activities in your schedule. Am I doing the activities? Am I not doing the activities? I don't want you to eliminate because you're not doing the activities, but you have to be able to prioritize. What are the things that I should be doing? Which we'll talk about in just a little bit. Now, what I want you to do is, of course, be prepared to review your goals or revise them. And more importantly, edit your schedule as needed. Okay, so we're talking a lot about the editing, the adjustments, all of these things that you have to do, because it's the constant fine-tuning here and there. Now, remember that working 5 days a week, as we've talked about, is normal. Working 7 days a week is completely abnormal. I don't want to wish that on you. I don't want you being away from your loved ones any more than you have to. I mean, I get it. Don't get me wrong. I understand. You're going to have to take care of that one buyer appointment on Saturday, heck, maybe even 2, or an open house. I get it. Ideally, that's going to be on the occasion, and that's going to be by appointment only, but that's not going to be always the case, because you should be able to build your schedule to a position where some of those Saturday, Sunday showings, you can kind of move them up in the week. Because are you controlling your schedule, or is your client controlling your schedule? Okay. Now, there are 3 segments to a premier trained agent. Okay. Now, the first segment, of course, is that of the morning routine. From the time when you get up until probably about noonish. Okay. That's the morning routine. Now, the early afternoon routine is at around 12 to about 3 o'clock-ish. And of course, the last part of the day is what is known as the presentation time, and that's 3 o'clock and after. If you look at it from those 3 different segments, ideally you're not going on home inspections, on Tuesday at 9:30 in the morning, when you should be going and getting business, whether that's knocking on doors or it's being on the phone and telephone prospecting. That's what that morning session is for. That 12 to 3, that should be when you're managing your business. That's you doing all the administration, working on your broker file, ordering signs, all this other stuff, or heck, maybe even training your assistant because your business is evolving. Now, master your morning routine. We call it money time. It's important you understand that. Money time. The most important time of your day is between the time when you get up and noon. There is nothing in your personal or business life that can't wait until noon. This is important and vital to everything we do in real estate. This is when ideally we have the most amount of energy. This is ideally when we should be prospecting, looking for new clients. This is not the time to be sending out counteroffers. This is not the time to be, on social media. This is not the time for you to be sitting there running errands. This is money time. This is what we get paid to do. And the better you are at this, the better everything else is going to take place. Because the more success you have in this money time, the more business you have. The more business you have, the more opportunities you have to hire staff, assistants, or people that are going to help you in your business. And of course, the more you do in the morning, the better you are going to be in regards to getting the opportunity to do presentations, because that's what we get paid to do. Going on presentations, getting offers, and negotiating them. That's ideally that time frame. Now, your morning schedule should be untouchable. Concrete, intense, and productive. Don't move it. Okay? You got to get your family in a position where they too, or loved ones, buy into this. Okay? So if they call you at 8:30 and expecting you to respond back in like 5 minutes, there should be an alternative way to get a hold of you, or for that matter, only let me know if it's an emergency. That's really important, because if you were on a listing appointment, say for example at 5 o'clock, and your spouse calls you at 5:15, would you be picking up the phone? I don't know. Maybe that's part of the things that we have to also take care of. Now, the afternoon schedule should be set aside for lead follow-up, previewing property, admin, pre-qualifying buyers and sellers, and going on appointments. If you have additional time, I want you to do more prospecting. Okay, so I want you to prospect. Unless you have too much business. Unless you have too much money, it's totally up to you. But ideally in this time, if you're done by like 2:30, 3 o'clock, this is where you should be doing more prospecting, of course, unless you're planning on going to an appointment. But if you don't, that's what you should be doing. Now, since we can't let anything interrupt or delay a listing appointment, as I've mentioned, don't let anything interrupt your morning prospecting appointments. Prospecting is the core of the business that makes everything happen. I'm saying it over and over again. There's a reason why I'm saying it over and over again. The more you are in tune with your morning schedule, the more you make that concrete, the more contacts you make. You know that this is a contact sport. I hope you know that. The more people you have conversations with, the more opportunities are going to come your way. Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to create a perfect schedule for yourself. Now, here's an example based on a 5-day work week. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to identify your top 5 non-negotiables. That means you have to do it no matter what. These 5 things, of course, are working on your skills, prospecting, lead follow-up, pre-qualifying and or negotiating contracts, and of course, going on appointments. Those are non-negotiable. The last 2 are result-oriented. The first 3, there's no reason why you shouldn't. You can't sit here and tell me, Robert, my role play partner didn't show up. Okay, what'd you do about it? Well, nobody's picking up the phone. Fine, get your butt in the car and go knock on some doors. Well, my leads aren't picking up. My lead follow-ups aren't picking up. Figure it out. Those 3 things are things that you should not be dismissing at any given moment. Okay. Secondly, identify your need tos. Need tos. Now, your need tos are things like along the line of admin, appointment prep, and for that matter, previewing properties. Now, you need to take care of your broker file. We know that. Okay. We need to prepare for the appointment that we're going to be having later on today. So these are things that are, in a sense, secondary. And yeah, they are secondary. Okay. Why? Because your morning routine is going to allow you the opportunity to get more business. The more business you have, the more opportunities you're going to have as such. And a good percentage of the things that I just described, you can eventually delegate some of this stuff when you get staff. And for that matter, if you have staff, you should be able to actually, delegate that now. The third thing is I want you to identify your want-tos. This is in a sense everything else. Social media, flyers, mailers, passive items, all that other stuff. Okay. Now, I'm not saying social media is bad. Okay. Social media is bad if you're just sitting there just scrolling, liking, commenting, all of these random things just for the purpose of wasting time. But if you're trying to provide content, material, create a profile, you're doing this for the purpose of engagement with an audience, that's a little bit different. But it should never come at the expense of your morning routine. Again, working on your skills, prospecting, and lead follow-up. It should never come at that. Now, let's go ahead and create a schedule. Okay, so on here, you'll see here is a copy or a version of with what would be a generic version. So as you can see, the very first thing is starting off with one time, and that time is being at the office. What time should you be at the office? My recommendation would be either 7, 7:15, 7:30 window. Why? Because ideally your first role play should be right around 7:30 or before that. Why? Because at 8 o'clock you should be on the phones already prospecting. While you're prospecting, you'll sprinkle in maybe some lead follow-ups, and maybe at the end of your prospecting you'll finish any lead follow-ups. Then of course after that you're gonna have to work on your broker file, do some admin, pre-qualify, negotiate. That's right, I did get that offer, so I got to go ahead and negotiate that. I also have to go ahead and write up that offer for the buyer that I showed properties to earlier today. And of course, your appointment slots. One thing you'll notice on this diagram is you'll see the appointment number 1 is at 5 o'clock as an example, and appointment number 2 is at 3 o'clock. So whether it's 3 and 5, 4 and 6, 3:30 and 5, 4 and 5:30, it doesn't matter. My point is keep it consistent. And the reason I put appointment number 1 at the very end of that, using this as an example, if you have an appointment and you schedule that appointment at 3 o'clock and you're done by 3:45, your appointment is over here, your office is over here, and your house is over here, are you going to go this way or are you going to go that way? Be honest, the likelihood is you're probably just going to call it a day and be done. Should you be rewarded for it? Yeah, sure. But you just cut your day short by an hour and 15, maybe an hour and a half. You do this 10, 12, 15 times over the course of the year, that's almost a half of a week's worth of work. So think about that. So in closing, creating an effective schedule. If there's one thing that I can tell you is that the managing of your schedule is going to be the most important thing that you can actually do. There's 2 key activities that you can do that will allow you to immediately be a successful realtor. Number 1 is going to be following your schedule. Number 2 is going to be the amount of prospecting you're doing. But here's the fun part. Your prospecting is already in your schedule. So in reality, all you have to do is master your schedule. Again, Robert Villanueva here. I'll see you at the top.